All right, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's get it. Little Locked on LSU. Facebook Live Q&A. Excuse me. All right, y'all got anything, fire away. We'll get to your Q&A here as we wrap up. If you're new to the party, every single day, weekdays, Locked on LSU podcast. We wrap up the podcast with a little live Q&A. This is kind of like a mailbag, but instead of like asking for questions on Twitter, we just fire this up and do it real time. So a really good way to interact and appreciate y'all. Will Cottrey, Dusty Revere, Michael Hall, Shelby Kelly. What's up, y'all? So usually we do this sometime in the 10 a.m. hour, just a little early today. So appreciate y'all for being here. Y'all fire away. Y'all got anything LSU related, hit me up. Opened up the podcast today, recapping Friday night's loss for the basketball Tigers. Talked a little bit about what the roster may look like next year. And then spent the second segment recapping the baseball series. So anything else y'all want to know, fire away. We'll get to your Q&A. Sorry. All right, let's see. What's Adam Pasquale? Good morning. All right, y'all know the drill. Anything y'all got, fire away. LSU question related. Craig Duke. All right, I'll do it, Craig. I'll do it for you. Craig wants to know about the receivers. He's trolling me, but I don't mind. Let's see. Ding, ding, dee, dee. Ding, ding, dee, dee. Oh. Boop. What did I do? That's wrong year. Boom. Boom. Okay. All right, here we go. Sorry, y'all. All right, let's, here we go. Fire away. Y'all got questions? Let's do it. Cole, Patrick, what's up, y'all? Frank, Justin, good morning. Okay, I'm going to get to y'all's questions. Here we go. Fire away. We're going to wrap up. Here we go. 3, 2. Okay, wrapping up another edition of the Locked on LSU podcast, your team every day. I encourage you every day as well. Please subscribe to the podcast. A lot of you listen every day, but you haven't subscribed. So please subscribe on whatever podcast app you listen to. We appreciate that greatly. If you're new to the party here, we always fire up a Facebook Live to wrap up every weekday. So go to my Facebook page, at Matt Moscona AFR, M-O-S-C-O-N-A, at Matt Moscona AFR. Like my page, set notifications. Whenever we go live, you'll get a notification. Hop on with us here, and you get your question answered real time. And sometimes, even after we're done recording, I hang around on Facebook Live and answer some other questions that maybe we don't include on the podcast. So we appreciate y'all for being here. All right, let's get to it. Craig Duga, spring game this weekend. Can you touch up on receivers? That is Craig trolling me because he knows one of my pet peeves is talking about LSU receivers, because for a decade we've heard about how great LSU receivers are, and seldom do we see any production at the collegiate level. Aside from 2013 with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, we just don't really see much production from receivers. Maybe I am moderately more optimistic this year because you've got a returning quarterback in Joe Burrow, who is your returning starter for the first time since the aforementioned Zach Mettenberger in 2013. And you've got a host of receivers who have played with him already, be it Justin Jefferson. I love Jamar Chase and the prospects of Terrace Marshall emerging. And then some other guys who've been veterans in the program. Derek Dillon hasn't practiced this spring yet, hip surgery. Stephon Sullivan, D. Anderson, some other guys that have been in the program. I like LSU's weapons. I like what they are physically. I've just got to see it in a game on Saturdays, not April the 6th in the spring game, but Saturdays in the fall to believe it. But maybe because of the returning quarterback and the injection of some young life into the offense with Joe Brady, I'm a little more optimistic with the passing game than in years past. Frank says, great weekend, Sweet 16, and took the series from State. Can't be mad at the loss to Michigan State. Talked about that a little bit in the open. It wasn't really tough to recap the game itself because you just got beat. There was nothing controversial about it. LSU made a hell of a run in the second half to get it within 4, but immediately after LSU got it to 4, Michigan State went on a 9-0 run to make it 11 again, or 13 again. So, you know, it was just one of those things where actually it was an 11-0 run that made it 15. And Nas had a point-blank look at the basket that he missed which could have cut that run. Maybe it turns out different, but Michigan State they were better. They were just better. They rebounded. They made shots. LSU didn't. So you just tip your cap. Justin Hosky asked, does Coach Wade return? I'm going to stick with my answer on this, and I'm giving it 40% that he returns. And some people think that's high, and maybe it is, but the reason is because the decision makers want him to return. My line all along is, and I'll stick with it, if they wanted to fire Will Wade, they would have done it by now. And the fact that LSU is being patient and waiting this out is not for contractual reasons. It's because they want Will Wade to return. He's a good coach. He's recruited well. He obviously can coach the X's and O's. His players play hard for him. The fans love him. The PMAC was packed. They won the SEC. Why would you want to run away a successful coach? For the same reason that Ohio State was super patient with Urban Meyer this past summer. Now, I get it, that's a guy that's won national championships, but the premise is the same. The same reason that Auburn has been patient with Bruce Pearl. If you're a good coach, you're going to get more leeway, and I think LSU wants Will Wade to return. But until we see more information come forward, it's impossible to know definitively if he will be able to. Let's see. Dusty Revere, to me, Javonte Smart has more potential than almost anyone. Are we sure that he returns? I believe so. I can't see Javonte at this point being an NBA prospect. I say his path follows kind of what Antonio Blakeney did. Blakeney came in as a 5-star, played a good bit as a freshman, emerged as a leader and leading scorer as a sophomore, probably would have been well-served to come back for another year, but decided to bounce, went into the G League, performed exceptionally well, and got himself an NBA contract, two-way contract. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the path Javonte follows a second year. Now, barring any changes with his situation with the Will Wade stuff, but I would certainly think that Javonte Smart is back. Shelby Kelly, with the lack of production from second base, do they try to rush back Dugas? Talking about Gavin Dugas, who was hitting 600 on the season. Now, we only played him 3 games, but he was really good in the limited action that he got. I don't think they try to rush him back because when you're talking about, ligament issues in your thumb and you're talking about trying to field, throw, and hit, you got to make sure that you're healthy enough to do that. And maybe the ascension of C.J. Willis and Giovanni DiGiacomo establishing himself as DH has supplemented the top of the lineup enough to where it's not as urgent. So let's see how that continues to go. But look, if you get Dugas back in April and he's later this month and he's able to hit the way he did in this small sample at the beginning of the season, then he plays second base and you have a situation similar to inserting Mikey Matuk into the starting lineup in 2009, late in his freshman season, and he never left the lineup. So perhaps that could be the case. Or maybe he just never really regains the form. That happened with Brant Broussard last year. He was LSU's leading hitter. He gets injured. He's never regained that form at the plate. But no, I don't think they'll rush him back. Let's see. Cole says LSU's going to wait till after the trial to make a decision on Wade for certain. If he doesn't return to LSU, who do they go after? It's impossible to answer that question. I don't mean to cop out, but if LSU is willing to pay a coach $2.5 million a year, they will be very competitive in who they can hire. That's number one. But depending on what happens with the Will Wade situation and if there's an NCAA investigation and subsequent sanctions, LSU becomes a less attractive job if you're hiring a mid-sanctions. Similar to Ole Miss. Post Hugh Freeze, they hired Matt Luke. I mean, that's, I'm certain, not the type of hire they would have liked to have made considering the success the program had on the back of Hugh Freeze, but it was a convenient hire for a guy that wanted the job and was willing to be patient through those sanctions. So it's an impossible question to answer until we know what's going to happen with Will Wade and with the NCAA. Another one, any word on any of the 8 arms out for LSU coming back this weekend of the weekend series? We got to keep in mind some of those 8 are done for the year. Like we know Nick Storrs isn't going to pitch all year. We know Easton McMurray isn't going to pitch this year. A.J. Labus isn't going to pitch this year. So you're actually not talking about 8 in total. The guys mostly that you're talking about are 3, which are Jaden Hill, Landon Marceau, and Chase Costello. I heard Nolan Cain on Off the Bench on Monday morning mention that Paul Maneri would update their status. They'd expect them to do some light toss this week to see if they were able to do that pain-free, and if so, then maybe they start working back to getting on the mound. It's hard for me to imagine those guys going the length of time without pitching and then throwing them out there in a weekend series when you just have so much on the line. My guess would be if they throw this week pain-free, maybe next week in the midweek, you try to get them some mound time. And if it goes well, then maybe you see if there's an opportunity to get him into the following series against Missouri. That's just a guess on my part, though. Paul Maneri should update that later today. Patrick Berglus, what'll happen if Coach Wade returns? Appears maybe the relationship between the two parties is damaged irreparably. I don't believe that it's damaged irreparably. I think that's a fan narrative that's gone out there a bit. But the thing that I'll continue to remind you is that for all that we can criticize LSU's administration for how they've handled the Will Wade situation, I think there's elements of it that they've handled very poorly. It's still Will Wade on a federal wiretap discussing compensating players. This mess was created by Will Wade. So I've been very consistent on this all along. While I may not be okay with how LSU's administration has handled this whole thing, it does not absolve Will Wade of wrongdoing or any culpability in LSU being in the situation where they are. They're in the situation they're in because he was on a federal wiretap discussing compensating a player. That's why this all started. Now, everything that's happened since has muddied the water, but that's still the starting point of this whole thing. And Craig is absolutely right. He said they would have fired him already, and that's the point I've made over and over and over again. If they wanted him gone, they would have fired him already because they absolutely have cause. Just being in that conversation on that wiretap is cause, and insubordination would also be cause, not showing up for a meeting with your bosses. All right, it is the Locked On LSU podcast, your team every day. Let me squeeze in one more. I know we're running late here, but I'm going to get one more. It's a baseball one. With the production in games 2 and 3 of the weekend series and having Antoine Duplantis at leadoff, Smith at 2, and so on, does the lineup stay like that going forward? My guess is yes, unless you start to see Zach Watson scuffle. So the 2-hole is just a spot in any lineup where you're going to see the most fastballs. When Watson was struggling in the 5-hole, they moved him to 2-hole. He became the leading hitter on the team. Josh Smith was scuffling this past weekend. He was phenomenal in the field, but he just struck out nine times this week, whatever it was. He struggled at the plate this weekend, and so they moved him into the 2-hole. Let's see if maybe that helps get him jump-started again. I would not in any way rule out Paul Maneri moving Josh Smith back to the leadoff spot, but Antoine Duplantis handled that beautifully this weekend. He homered twice in Game 3, and if that gets Josh Smith going in the 2-hole, fantastic, and especially if Watson can continue to produce in the 3-hole. But Watson, like everybody else, struck out a bunch this weekend as well. So, but yes, I would think that the top 3 stays the same. When Daniel Cabrera returns, I think he goes the 4-hole. Chris Reed, 5. I like C.J. Willis, 6. Giovanni DiGiacomo, 7, and then you could fill out probably Mathis, 8, and then you're looking at however you're going to fill out with Hughes, Broussard, your DH spot, whatever you're going to do with it there, you can fill out the 8 and 9 holes. So, all right, that's going to do it for us. The Locked On LSU podcast, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your questions as always. Please subscribe, tell a friend. We'll be back tomorrow. 2 midweek games for LSU baseball, counting you down to the LSU spring football game on Saturday. And any news out of the basketball program, of course, we'll share with you right here. Glad to have you with us. Locked On LSU, your team every day. Okay, I went long there, so I needed to wrap that up. But I'll get your questions here. Patrick, they already have cause, didn't talk to the administration. Exactly. They don't want to fire him. Craig, say Wade is found to have run a dirty program. Could Wade remain even if sanctioned into the Stone Age? Is there a situation where this has happened to another program? Let me look that up. Let me look that up. I don't think so. Just when you think of some of those scenarios, usually the sanctions come after the fact. Like, look at USC. Pete Carroll was already gone from USC, right? Joe Paterno at Penn State had passed when those sanctions came. Just when you start thinking about those types of things that come down, it seldom happens while a coach is still there. In a large part, because it's not like the NCAA is going to make a ruling in a day. The North Carolina investigation took 2 years. Missouri took 2 years. It's hard to believe that this is all going to be rectified by April, with the NCAA. But we'll see what what LSU elects to do. Let's see. But I will look that up for you. If Wade comes back cleared, by all means, what's the percentage Joe stays as athletic director? I don't think he's tied to Will Wade. I think, look, LSU's got to make a decision on Will Wade or on Joe Oliva. His contract expires next summer, the summer of 2020, and I think you'll have a decision on Joe this summer. Let me put it to you this way. I think you will have a decision on Joe Oliva before the gubernatorial election in November. And that in and of itself speaks volumes about the culture in our state. Unfortunate but true. If Wade does not return, who do you expect to leave or transfer? It depends if guys can transfer and are allowed to transfer without sitting out. But maybe it's naive. I don't think it would affect anybody. Aside from what we've already talked about. Yancey, Herb Tyler is the superintendent of the company MAP that is doing the job for me in St. James. Matter of fact, it's the demo of the old St. James High. Anyway, Corey Webster came by Thursday, picked up the 2003 St. James banner he donated when the basketball team won state then. Also, Rowan Davey was in Herb's office when I was in there checking on the job. Rowe is a salesman for Sorrento Concrete. Awesome that I was in the room with two of the greatest quarterbacks ever at LSU. Although also All-American Webster. I actually brought up your name to Rowe about our new friendship and keeping him on your show. Just figured I'd share. By the way, they both think you're cool. Cool. I'd hope so. Let's see. All good, Yancey. Thanks, man. A great weekend for baseball and softball. Every weekend the SEC is a super regional. In both sports, feels like it. But, man, look, this weekend is going to be really cool for LSU baseball with A&M coming in. Great opportunity. But then they go to Missouri, who's not very good. You've still got Bama and Auburn. Like, there are so many sweepable series ahead for LSU. Getting through these 3 series, sweeping the first week against Kentucky gave you the luxury of losing one of these 2 series. And they did, and they won the other, and they won the one that you'd prefer, quite honestly, in the West. So 6-3, you're on pace for 20-10. You get some winnable series ahead. I love it. With Henry and Walker looking great, where do Hill and Marceau fit in when they return? This is just I wish you'd asked that earlier, Shelby, because I'd love to answer this on the podcast. I think Jaden Hill fits beautifully into the Zach Hess role from 2017. This kid can sit 95, 96. He can be a starter. He's got great stuff, all that stuff. But I love the thought of saying, hey, Jaden, look, we've got our first 3 starters. And maybe you get to a situation in the postseason where you need a fourth. The fourth, I would assume, maybe it's Marceau, but maybe you fit Jaden Hill in there. I would love to say, hey, Jaden, here, take the ball, go throw 15 pitches, go throw 98, 90, just let it bleep and rip and go strike everybody out and let that be your 9th inning guy. And Fontenot can stay in his current role. Todd Peterson becomes sort of a situational righty that can come throw 98 out of the bullpen if you need him. Or if Peterson closes one day, Hill could close the next. I love him in that role. He's a rotation guy next year. Your rotation next year is, Marceau, Hill, Henry, Walker. You got 4 guys. I mean, how do they fit in the weekend? LSU's got a good problem right now. Justin Hosky, does Joe Oliva return? Return when? I think a decision on Joe is made, like I said, before the election in November, probably this summer, before football season. Charles Rees, did you notice a change in the approach of the plate? Nope. They struck out 42 times. You know what changed? You weren't facing Ethan Small. That's what changed. How is Joe doing so far on the scrimmage? I I'll get some updates on that. I didn't see the scrimmage this weekend. I might get a chance to see the tape. I'll let you know if I do. All right. Appreciate everybody. All right. That's it. I'm going to go upload this podcast. If y'all haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Locked on LSU, however you get podcasts. Appreciate it. We'll see y'all today for AFR. Peace.